Hey folks, Justin from Tackle Tactics, back from one of my favourite places on the planet, Fraser Island, so off the coast of Queensland, a few hours north of Brisbane, the largest sand island in the world, and also a great place to chase a stack of different fish species, whiting, dart, tailor, and there's also queenies, trevally, Spanish mackerel, a bunch of other species can be found on the island. Today I wanted to talk to you about how our week away went, what worked for us, and just give you a few tips for fishing one of our favourite lures in the surf or when fishing the beach. It's a pretty versatile option, and I'm talking soft plastic. So I'm going to quickly run through 3 lures that always do the job for us when we're fishing beach or surf, and I'm going to focus a little bit at the end on plastics, and also I've got some cutaway footage from our trip. So we got stuck into plenty of Tailor up there on Fraser Island. So firstly, in terms of the 3 lures, metal slugs have always been a favourite for anglers fishing the surf or fishing the beach. They have a small profile, baitfish style profile, they cast like a rocket, and they're a great option for spinning in the surf. We generally focus on 20 gram, 30 gram, 40 gram TT Lures hardcore slugs. So that 20, 30, 40 gram has you covered for most species. And the cool thing is you can throw the 20 gram on light spin gear. You can step up to the heavier spin gear as you step up for your 30 and your 40 gram slug. And then you can go beyond that. If I'm fishing big surf gutters, this is my combo of choice. So Trio Rex surf rod from Okuma, Surf 8K. I load it with 30 pound Bionic braid from Platypus. So Bionic I've fished for a long time, and it's extremely durable line, good quality line. But that sort of combo, 13'6", 12 foot to 13'6" surf combo, is ideal in those big heavy surf gutters. And in those big heavy surf gutters, you may be throwing 40 gram slugs, you may step up 60 gram, 80 gram, 100 gram slugs you may be throwing in the surf. For me, one lure that excels in those larger gutters as well, the slugs are great. The problem with the slugs I find is that because of the weight of them and the fact they sink, you're forced generally to fish quickly. So the trouble is, if the fish are a bit spooky, you'll often see schools will split or schools will speed up and race away from you because they spook on the slugs and the high speed. You know, they're being harassed by anglers fishing, they're being harassed by predatory species like queenfish, mackerel, trevally and that are coming in and busting up those schools of Tailor. So you can often find them pretty flighty and they will not eat a metal slug. This is when I step to the flanker, Fish Inc. Lures flanker. So 2 sizes. An 85mm and a 115mm, and these are awesome. So unfortunately on this trip to Fraser we had bad weather for the first few days, and then we found the Tailor around the point away from the surf beach, so I didn't fish the surf, heavy surf and big gutters as much as I would have liked. I did get a nice trevally on the 115 flanker, and it's been a lure that's produced well in the past. The smaller 85mm, awesome when you find those small patches of Tailor and they're a bit more flighty. Because these are a little bit lighter and they're a bit of a different design with that hybrid metal insert in a ABS, heavy duty ABS body, you can twitch them and you can walk them and you can wind them quick, but not as quick as a slug. So you can kind of slow them down and vary the retrieve, which really can get the fish to bite when they're a bit finicky. And then of course, the ultimate step then is your plastics. Switch to a plastic and you can mix your retrieve up a whole lot more, you can slow it down a lot more, you can really finesse it, and you can catch a wider variety of fish I find as well. So in those big gutters on the big combo or our smaller combo that we step down to, I'll generally be throwing slugs, those hardcore TT Lures slugs, flankers from Fish Inc., and I'll be throwing ZMan plackies. So in the bigger surf gutters I find we'll fish heads around 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce, and I'm fishing 7.0 and 8.0 hooks a lot of the time, and I'm fishing 7-inch plastics, 6-inch paddle tails like the swimmers, throwing predominantly paddle tails and jerk baits, but a big curl tail will also work. And then I'll also step down to something like this. So that's a 5-inch diesel MunnowZ on one of the new big eyes in a 7.0. And that's a dynamite presentation for those larger gutters. You know, you're likely to come across big flathead, you're likely to catch a mulloway, you're likely to catch trevally, queenfish, all sorts of species feeding in those gutters. And I find that when I come from the slugs and slow it down, I come back to the flanker, I'll often catch more fish if the fish are finicky, come back to a plastic and boom, deadly weapon in the surf, and you catch a lot more fish in those big surf gutters. For us this trip, with the weather keeping us off the main surf beach a bit, we tucked in around the corner and we found a few spots where we could spot small schools of fish. So we're looking at schools the size of maybe a car, 2 cars, 3 cars in the water, and we're looking for grey patches or black patches as they get more dense, and that's schools of bait or schools of tailor. The only way you can really tell is to put a few casts in there or watch it and see if the school breaks a bit and you can see an actual fish shape, which is your tailor. Sometimes you can see the actual tailor in the school. If it looks like a lot more like weed or dirt or small stuff in there, it's probably bait. So when we get in that situation, I have great fun fishing light gear for those fish. So we'll put that big rod away and we'll step to our medium-sized rod, which we also use in the surf gutters as well, but we also use it for throwing heavy plastics, slugs and those sorts of things for our little schools of tailor that we're spotting. In this case, I was using a 40 or a 50 size Epixor XT, so a 40 size loaded with 20-pound braid, and this is on a Delta 6 to 10 kilo spin rod. So this is not a light, you know, flimsy sort of rod. This is a rod you can really put some hurt on some big fish. You're fishing 20-pound braid, you're on a 4,000 size reel. You know, you can throw a 40-gram slug, no problem. You can throw the bigger flanker, no problem. You can also throw a plastic, small plastic on a big head, which is what we did a lot of, but I'll talk a bit more about that. The go-to combo for me up there, and this is what I was up there with my folks and my wife Sherry, so we were predominantly using the Cerros 3 to 6 kilo with a 30 size reel with 10-pound braid. So some of you will go, 10-pound braid, you know, it's a bit light for what we're doing and that sort of thing. But we were predominantly visually targeting schools of tailor. So we know what we're up against, and we're not fighting a fish that's going to take massive drag. At the same time, we've caught some queenies to near a metre. We've caught some nice trevally on that 10-pound line. The key is, when you're fighting those fish, move with them down the beach and change your rod angle a bit on them as well to try and get them to turn their head and just not get with the current and run away from you. So this combo is awesome for throwing 20-gram slugs. It's awesome for throwing that smaller flanker as well. But the deadly weapon again for us this trip, and we had multiple sessions where we left the tailor biting. So, you know, catch 20, 30 tailor and then leave them alone, leave them biting, come back the next day and have another crack at them. And the lure that did the damage was the 3-inch ZMan minnows. So I've talked about it before in the surf, and it is a lure that has caught a ton of different species, and it is my go-to on tailor. So we fished with people around us who were fishing other lures. We could hardly raise a bite on a 20-gram slug. The fish were too spooky. If you threw to the middle of the school, you'd split the school in half. If you threw to the front of the school, the school would turn. If you threw to the back of the school, you'd speed them up and chase them down the beach. So they were really, really finicky, because by the end of the trip, the larger predators had started to come in, and there was a couple of big queenies smashing them up and that sort of thing. There was also dolphins eating them and all sorts of things. So they were quite flighty, so that splash and high speed flash of a slug coming through there was putting them down. Got a couple on the flanker, but it was the plastic that was the absolute destroyer. So for us, fishing it on that 10-pound braid allowed us to get nice distance with us. 3 to 6 kilo rod, we had a lot of fun with it. And we fished jig heads ranging from quarter, so quarter ounce 3.0 if the fish were right on the beach. If they were out a bit further, 3/8, 3.0, and a lot of the time we fished a 1/2 ounce 3.0 HeadlockZ HD jig head. So there's a whole stack of them here rigged. I just wanted to show you the reality of the situation. I took with me a giant box of fishing gear and a million different options, and this is basically the tray that we used up there over the few days when we went looking for fish. We had a beach cart, which is really, really handy. You can travel the beach, you can keep an eye on the bait, you can keep an eye on the fish, and it's a really cool way to just, you know, explore the beach, and you're right there with your fingers on the pulse. You're not driving around in a vehicle, you're looking at everything that's going on, and you do find and you see a lot of cool stuff. Whales, turtles, dolphins, you see all that sort of stuff, dingoes, but you also see the bait movement, you see the fish movement, you see the patches of fish, and you catch a lot of fish. So basically I've got this nice little tray here that needs a massive cleanup. It's full of sand, and this is the reality of what worked for us right here. So we caught a lot of tailor, and it was predominantly on these lures. So I'll put that down. That's our 3 to 6 kilo Cerros. We were using 30 size reels. You don't need to spend $1 million. That's a Helios SX on here, but we also had a Epixor XT 30s, and they did the job. They were awesome. And that was fishing 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2 ounce 3.0 HeadlockZ HD jig heads with those ZMan 3-inch minnows. At one point, the fish got a bit further out than they normally would sit, and they were sitting right out on the edge of the drop-off. And in that case, I had to change it up. And I actually had some of these with me that I was going to put in bigger plastics, but I put the 3/4 ounce 5.0 in a 3-inch minnows. So not ideal. It's not, you know, absolutely designed for that plastic, and you're not going to get the full movement of the body and that out of it. But I got enough tail beat and that out of there just to switch those fish on. So the 5.0 hook, they ate it, no problem. 3-inch minnows was beautiful. And because I was fishing slow roll or a burn and kill or a hopping retrieve, I was moving that plastic consistently, so it kept that little tail going even with that larger hook in there. But that was absolutely dynamite on that middle weight combo, that 6 to 10 kilo Delta with that 40 size reel, 20 pound braid. I could get plenty of distance with that 3/4 ounce 5.0, and I dare say 5.0 hook, I could even put a 1 ounce 5.0 in that 3-inch minnows and still get that, you know, get plenty of distance and get it out there to those fish. There were 3 main retrieves that worked for us. As always, we rotate the retrieve. If the fish stop following your lure in or they stop biting, switch it up. So we fished a slow roll, just a slow wind through the school. We fished a burn and kill, 3 quick winds and a pause. And we fished a hopping retrieve. Hopping, hopping. We caught fish along the way, and then I always say mix it up, mix it up, mix it up, and we did. I fished a retrieve, I changed it up a bit more, they were really frustrating me, so I was fishing it with 1 or 2 really good rips, and the best way I could describe it to people was I was trying to rip the plastic away from the fish so they couldn't get it. And I mean, what's a bait fish do? It wants to get away, so it's going to dart and get away. And I found if I fished this ripping retrieve, rip and pause, they couldn't help themselves. Boom, really aggressive, nice, solid takes. And that was on that 10 pound braid, so awesome fun catching those Tailor. And Sherry caught a bunch, my mum and dad caught a bunch, and I caught a stack of Tailor, so it was really, really good fun. In terms of 3-inch minnows colour, there is no doubt for me that over time, over the last 5 years, where we've probably got more Tailor on plastics than anything else, it's been Pearl Blue Glimmer has been the absolute slayer. It's just such an awesome natural baitfish colour. But in saying that, all of the natural baitfish colours that we fished well. So we fished Pearl Blue Glimmer, we fished Opening Night, we fished Pinfish. One that really excelled this year was the new Smelt. Smelt was awesome, caught a ton of fish, and the other colour was Green Lantern that we had in the kit. So, you know, a handful of 3-inch minnows, a handful of jig heads in the right weights, you catch a lot of fish. And people say to me, oh, you know, what about the teeth on Tailor? They're going to rip your plastic apart or whatever. They chew it up over time. You can see that one there's got a few nicks and dings and bites out of it. It's amazing how many times you can put this plastic, even there it's got a big bite in its guts, but it's amazing how many times you can put this plastic back on this jig head when it's torn up and it'll keep catching fish. Once it doesn't rig well because it's ripped up a bit more, turn it upside down, rig it upside down, the fish don't care. So generally we get around about 20 fish from a plastic. You might be unlucky and cast it out there, get your tail bitten off, first go. But then the next one you might catch 30 Tailor on that one plastic. So yeah, consistently the fish will seem to clear that plastic, they get hooked up in the jaw and the plastic just sits outside their mouth. The one main thing to remember when you're getting a Tailor off is if the Tailor's hanging onto the plastic, don't just pull it away from the Tailor, otherwise the teeth are locked on that plastic and you will assist in damaging that tail. So I generally will try and grab them, pull the mouth open a bit and pop that plastic out and away we go, we're good to go again. So yeah, so in terms of tips and techniques, firstly, the trick is to locate the schools, and they really, round that full moon and round that new moon, a few days either side of the full and new is perfect time to fish for them. They tend to school up, and they also, the whiting tend to school up. So the Tailor school up and they track down the schools of whiting and bait and stuff and they bust them up. So if you love your surf fishing, beach fishing, it doesn't have to be for Tailor. It can be for flathead, it can be for queenfish, trevally, salmon, whatever it might be that you're chasing off the beach in those surf gutters and beach gutters. Don't forget to have a few plastics in your kit. That's the key. For me, I would urge you to. I've caught loads of fish over the years on slugs. I've caught loads of fish over the years on the flanker. But again, this trip, it was the plastics that excelled. The The plastic's got that bite when nothing else would get the bite, and the plastic, I could fish it subtly. I can fish it high speed if I want, in the top of the water column. I can slow it down and rip it. I can hop it on the bottom, catch a flathead. Just extremely versatile. So don't be afraid to take your light spin gear with you and have a bit of fun. Keep an eye out for that bait and schools and what's going on around you. Target the schools with those, you know, throw your slugs at them first if you want to. You'd be surprised. I had guys fishing side by side, not getting them on the slugs. I throw a plastic, they eat the plastic. So throw your other lures, but have those plastics there ready to rumble, because I reckon you will slay on them as well. So other key things to remember, if you're chasing a school of fish and they're moving fast, if you throw into the middle of the school, you can break that school up, which happens quite often. The other thing I see is people running after the school, and they don't run up and get ahead of the school and cast. They cast to the back of the school, and all it seems to do is speed the school up down the beach. So then you're running back to your truck, get in your truck, chase them, get out, throw to the back of them again, they're gone again. You know, if you get in front of the school, especially I had some schools that was tiny schools of bigger fish, I'd get the plastic and I'd lob it in front of the school, leave it sit there, wait for them to get to it, hop like it's trying to get away, give it a rip, and they're on it, and you tend to get the bigger fish, and you get much more aggressive takes when that bait fish is naturally trying to get away from that school of fish that's coming, rather than cast it into the middle of the school or the tail of the school. So there you go, Fraser Island, I love it. We had a great trip. We caught a million tailor, we caught a bunch of whiting, we got a trevally and a few other bits and pieces. Didn't really get onto the big pelagic species this year, but it's a good reason to go back next year. So check out those plastics next time you're heading to fish the beach or fish the surf, and I hope you get stuck into a few as well. Cheers.